Welcome back, DIYers. Today I'm replacing my kitchen faucet and resealing down my sink. Let me show you why I'm doing it this way. All right, so this is a nice little rainy day project to do, and that's why I'm doing it, because, well, it's raining outside and I can't get outside to work. So this little project's been on the back burner for a while, so I thought, well, here's the perfect time to do it. We're replacing the kitchen faucet, well, because I believe this is the original that came with the house, which makes it 13 years old, and it leaks around here and it leaks on around the base of it, and the sprayer is basically no good. It's clogged up. I've tried several times to unclog it and make it better. It doesn't really help. And then two, the sink itself, well, it leaks around the edges. So let me show you why we're going to take it all the way out. But before we get started, we got to clean off everything off the counter and everything from out from under the sink. This is why we're pulling the sink out.
Mold. Yeah.
See that mold? It's because it leaks. And I'll show you why. So when they cut the granite for the countertop, they cut it too big. There's barely any countertop right there. You see how that clip is just barely hanging on. Now you can see back there I got quite a bit more cabinet. I got quite a bit more granite in order for the clips to hang on to. And so because of that, let's see if we can find a way to fix this. So when we put it back, we got a little more to clip onto, and it holds it down in here a little better, and we stop the leaks. The first thing I need to do is shut the water off. Now, I happen to have PEX in my house, and if you're not familiar with PEX, it's kind of a plastic type plumbing, replaces copper. And so I can turn it off here under the sink, but I can also go out in my garage where there's a manifold that I'll show you and shut the water off also. That's the manifold that controls all the water in the house. Kitchen sink hot, kitchen sink cold. Put a little key on there, half turn, and all the kitchen water's turned off. All right, I got everything cleaned out under here and found my first problem. And that I've got a leak. So much so that the sheetrock back here was rotted, and I think it's leaking where I see the wetness is coming down my hot water line from the faucet, coming down my hot water line and dripping, because I've got this spacer here, or this cover plate, pulled out, and while I was doing this I was still getting drips, and they were coming off of here. Like I say, this has stayed dry. I've got no drips. This may also be leaking. I seem to have gotten a couple drips, so I may see if I can just replace this valve. But thankfully, it's not this, because that's a huge project to try and do. What I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to run to my local Home Depot here and get some sheetrock to replace in there. Hell right up there, but it's wet or damp. I think it's just running down this line and dripping. So when we replace this, hopefully all that'll get fixed. Okay, so the next thing I need to do is A, undo all these clips that are holding the sink down, and B, I'm just going to unhook this fitting and pull this all out as one unit. Okay, I took a 5/16 inch deep well socket, unscrewed those, and unclipped the sink. What I have to do next is undo that hot water side and that cold water side. This I don't have to undo yet because it comes back around to the spray nozzle, so I can take that off once I get it out of here. And then I need to undo this, and we can lift this out of here. All right, I got it out. Turned over. I got it set up on a couple sawhorses here so it's easier to work on. First thing we need to do is get the old faucet off, and basically got to unscrew these plastic little couplings. They're kind of corroded on there pretty good. So this one here is real easy. I wish they all were like that. If I break this getting it off, it's not a big deal. And there. Next, for these corroded things, a pair of channel locks. And And that's got to be where this was leaking from, is because there's water everywhere over here. That part was really easy. Now, if I'd had to do it up underneath the cabinet with this in, it'd have been a pain in the butt. So while I had reasons to get this out here, it definitely made this easier. So let me show you over on the granite countertop what I need to do there to get this all ready to go back in. As you can see, I got all this, there's a little caulking there and dirt and grime all up underneath here, keeping this from sitting flat. So I'm gonna clean all this off, get this nice and shiny clean. That way when I put the new one down, it seals and sits tight so I don't get water underneath there. So I'm gonna go do that. I'm gonna run to my local Home Depot, get a piece of sheetrock, see if I can get some extra clips to clip this down under here. I'm gonna check into one other thing. I've got a kind of an idea to try and get a little more lippage, if you will, to hook to, so this will clamp down better. Leave me a comment down below which one you go to, Lowe's, Home Depot, or some other one. And why? Do you go because of the selection, because of the pricing, because it's close, because it's easy, the way the store's laid out? Let me know. So when I get back, we'll get started. I'm replacing it with this Delta faucet, where I've got a hot and cold adjustment knob in order for it to fit in the way that my plumbing is set. It comes with this little gasket, if you will. It fits over here. Now they say you don't have to caulk this if you don't want to, if you have smooth surfaces, but I'm going to anyway because I want to make sure I don't get water bleeding in underneath here. And then the other thing is the tops of these are marked hot and cold, so you better make sure you get them right, otherwise these aren't going to turn. You'll just, I mean, if you put it in this way, it works, but you got to turn it towards the window. Your hot and cold will be turned around. So make sure you take these little end caps off. I'm going to put the caulking on this, set it down in position, put that in there, and put these screw nuts on there. So I've got clear kitchen and bath silicone caulking. What you'll notice is these little ridges here. Well, this is not flat, so I'm going to put the caulking down inside these little trays, if you will, to where the caulking's above the level of this, so when I push it down, it squeezes out. Okay, so I cut a bigger portion off the tip, so I got a bigger bead. Now remember, hot and cold. Your hot's always to your left. Nuts to go on. Hand tight's all it says to do. Don't use a wrench. Now take a little rag and wipe that off. Next, we'll get the little spray nozzle mounted. So this will all go through here. This will mount down on here. This will hook up underneath to the faucet. And then naturally this fits just like that. Now there's no gasket on here, but I think I'll go ahead and put a little bit of caulking right around the rim, again, so that it seals. And then I think I'll put a little bit right around here so it seals underneath. Same for this. Now I know I'm going to get squeeze out on this and it might go into threads, and I'm okay with that. Very little squeeze out underneath. I'm going to wet a finger and get what little's here. Again, this all dries clear, so it doesn't matter. You can see there's a little bit of squeeze out here and there's some up underneath here, and that's okay. Now my spray nozzle goes up through here. It snaps on here. Okay, for all intents and purposes, that was the easy part. Now, getting it set in there without making a big mess. Now, when I set this in here, I'm going to want squeeze out under the sink and onto the granite countertop, so I know I got a good bead closing up the gap. So what I'm going to do first is put my clips back on before I set it in. Now, I've only got 6, and I'd like to have about 4 more, so I'm going to have to order some, and I'll put a link down below in case you need the same clips for your sink to make this a little tighter. But for now, we'll move on. So before I go to putting the sink in here, I've got an idea of how to get me a little more room so my clips will have more meat to clamp on. Okay, how I'm going to do this is use my plunge router, and the dust collection hooks up to my home vacuum cleaner. Basically, I'm going to use this guide to hold it on the top. I'm just going to plunge it in. I'm going to route her out, about 1.5 inch, 2 inch slot, 3/4 of an inch deep, at least on the front. Now when I go over here to these sides, because I only need the sides and this front, the back's got plenty of granite to grab onto. So without the wood from the cabinet in the way, that should be able to grab up underneath there further and get a good bite. And so when I go over to here, I'll plunge it as deep as I can. If it goes all the way through, I don't care. Got those holes routed out. Now those two are a little close to each other because I couldn't get clear back here like I wanted. These go all the way through. These do not. I did not want these to go all the way through. And those don't go all the way through. And that's because I didn't set the depth on the plunge router deeper, but there's a good probably 1.75 inch there worth of countertop for those hooks to grab a hold of. All right, I got the faucet all hooked up on the sink. What I'm going to do is I'm going to set the sink in here. I'm going to put the clips on the sink with it in here, but I'm going to put it where I've routed out the grooves on the sides. The back, it doesn't matter because it can go anywhere. And clamp it down. Then I'm going to tape it off, and I'll pull it out one last time, caulk everything, put it back. Hopefully that'll be it. Wish me luck. I don't know if having more clamps would make a difference, but I'm going to have to rely on caulking some to plug the holes, because even with it clamped as tight as it can go, I still can see daylight under here. And I've got 2 in the back, 2 in the front, and 1 on each side, and I can see daylight on all, well, I should say the front and back sides. So, and actually like through here I don't, and through here I don't, it's on these ends. So I don't know if the extra clamps is going to make a big difference or not. We'll have to see, but I definitely have to rely on the caulking to fill the holes. So it's time to take all the clamps back off, pull this up out of here, caulk, put it back in for one more time. Okay, I got it in. I put caulking on the countertop, heavy in the corners, and I put caulking in the corners on the sink itself. I've got it in, got it set where it needs to go. We're going to clamp it in and then smooth out the caulk. All right, so we got it all in, all caulked, all hooked up, all ready to go. All I need to do is turn on the water, hope there's no leaks. Now, I let it set overnight so it'd get good and set up as far as the caulking. So next, we're going to turn the water on and hope there's no leaks. But before I turn the water on, I need to open all these up. I need to take the filter nozzle off here to kind of bleed the system because it's going to be full of air. Now we're all set. Okay, let's have a closer look inside. Looks really good. What I'm going to do now is fill up both sinks, stop them up and fill them up so the water can run, and then open it up and check the drains. And while I'm doing that, I'll show you how I'm gonna fix this patch of sheetrock. Okay, so the first thing I need to do before I patch this is figure out how thick it is. I don't know if by chance they put like 5/8 fire rock or if it's just a standard 1/2 inch. Looks to be the standard 1/2 inch. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put water resistant or mold resistant green sheetrock board back on here, just because if it gets wet, maybe it'll buy a little time. First thing I want to do is take some measurements by 9. I'm going to get this to fit as tight as I can, because I'm not going to fill this and patch this with any drywall mud or tape, because this is just going to be temporary. Like I say, when I remodel the whole kitchen, all this comes out, and I'm going to take out a big piece of this and redo it. But what I will do is probably just put some of that silicone caulking in the crack to keep bugs from coming out. Okay, I got my sheetrock cut for half of it, because as you see, there's a pipe plumbing coming out, so I can't have one big piece, because, well, I can't take all this off. Well, I could take this off, drill a big hole and put in there, but I decided to do it this way. It's easier. Now, I'll show you. It's in there real nice. Now, I'm going to screw here on the stud, but I don't have anything over here. That's where the old paint stick comes in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick this paint stick in here and screw to it, and that way I'll have something to screw on this side and this side. Got the paint stick put in there. Like I say, I'll put a screw in here and here and in here to hold it, and I can put my patch in and screw it in. Okay, so I got screws in. I need a couple more, one here and one here, and that'll be good. Thing to remember is you need the screws to just barely dimple the paper if you're gonna mud and tape. It's that easy. Now, I won't bore you doing the other side. Last test. Let's check the sinks. Well, there you have it, dry as a bone. This was a fairly simple DIY friendly project you can do. Now, if all you have to do is replace the faucet, you know, maybe a couple hours, 2-3 hours to do. But unlike me, if you got to pull your sink out and recaulk and reset it and do some drywall repair, it'll probably take you a day to do it. But it's still a DIY friendly project that you can do on a rainy day. Makes a nice rainy day project. Your wife might be happy she's got a new kitchen faucet. So with that, I hope you learned something from the video and you enjoyed it. And you'll think about subscribing to the channel. Also, help the channel out. Use one of my affiliate links down below to go on a shopping spree for some new tools, or go to my shop and get some DIY merchandise. Until next video, happy DIY.